No, I forgot how to turn the camera around. Hello. Let me try and get this up here so we can read comments without having to do the leany bit. Can we get a sound off? We're using microphones. Can we get a sound off where the people can hear us?
The comments are a little slow, so if you're all busy responding with something, then thank you. Awesome, thanks.
Okay, cool.
Good.
Cool. We have noise. That's quite exciting. I don't know why I always really distrust the little microphones. It's like you plug it in and then there's just this kind of thing of going, well, this might work or it might not work, but I can't tell.
Some platforms don't like them.
Yeah, and then they just freak out and they don't have any sound whatsoever. How is everyone? I really hope that everyone is either way earlier in the day or way later in the day or in a place of the world where it's a lot cooler than it is here.
Unless Maggie, it's really grim here.
It is very hot here. Everything is very, very hot here. Right. So we are talking about LGBTQ plus characters on television and representation on television as per request of our unparalleled unicorn Stephanie.
Indeed.
And we thought it would be really good to do it live like normally. I also want to apologise now because it is 6:30 here. It is a Saturday. The builders next door should have stopped working 5.5 hours ago and they have not. But hopefully it isn't too bad at your end. But yeah, basically the reason that we're kind of doing it as a live rather than like normally that's a Patreon reward thing, that's a podcast episode. But we just thought that having it be a more open discussion with input from a lot of other people would be more suitable.
I think it's also we have to be very aware that we're speaking from a perspective of two non-LGBTQ people. Like that's the way it is, and you know nothing we can do about that. And I feel like there's a conversation to be had about representation irregardless, and it's certainly a conversation that people should be having everywhere, always. Mm-hmm. It's something that, you know, one of our big problems with representation is that I think people shy away from having conversations about representation, but it does mean that I'm very keen on getting like as many voices as possible into the conversation that may have different perspectives than ours, that definitely have different perspectives than ours, and can speak more directly from their own experience. We're going to be talking very generally about, you know, how representation works in the television shows that we're talking about, within the fandom that we've experienced, but that's obviously nothing to do with our personal experience. Yeah,
and I do also think that what you said in regards to, you know, people should always be talking about it, and I do think there is that kind of fear of not talking about it from a cis perspective because you could be getting things wrong. And it's also certainly for me kind of why I very much want to do this live with people being able to comment and, you know, say, actually, I think what you just said is utter nonsense.
Yeah.
And actually have that discussion. Actually talk about it.
There's a massive difference between having a discussion about representation, about how we as a society should be doing better in terms of representation in media generally, how we can support artists of diverse backgrounds, all of that stuff, and stepping on the toes of people speaking directly from their own experience. And, you know, the more problematic end of that becomes when you're not staying in your proverbial lane, when you're not checking your privilege, when you're not being aware that you're speaking from a very specific, very individual context that is definitely not going to be the same context as everybody's speaking from. And I'm sorry, I really just got distracted because there is a slug on that log and I can't. Sorry.
Welcome to the garden.
We've got the iPad propped up on like a log from our fire pit, and there was a slug on it, and I don't do slugs. So.
Ruth does not do slugs. Ruth does not do
Sorry
slugs.
about that. It's probably a good break in tension. There we go.
Yeah, I have no idea what you were saying, other than there's a slug. Mark Allen thinks that we should ask the builders about their favourite LGBTQ plus rep, which would be fun if they spoke a word of English. So that's probably not going to happen. However, we do have, and I have no idea whether this is going to work, but we have Steph here to talk to us in this episode, and I have never done this before. See what happens now. This is the bit where everything blows up.
Find out.
Ooh!
Yeah.
Hello! Okay, I knew that was going to happen.
Okay. Yep. No. Phone's for us.
Right, let's try that again. Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
There we are. I did
Okay.
think, I thought that we might not get to have our microphones because then sound input, not output, and that was always going to happen.
I think I was having the same thing with my headset here, so.
We'll freestyle it. It'll be fine.
I like
Cool.
that we are on the same level of we're so snazzy with technology.
Yeah.
How are you?
Well, I was trying to hook up on my desktop, and it wouldn't even let me send a request. So, yeah. Oh, well. I'm doing pretty good here in the middle of America on the Missouri. So.
What's the temperature at your end?
Actually, today is abnormal. We're actually a really good, we use Fahrenheit, 76 degrees Fahrenheit. So,
What's
really
that, real
nice.
money?
Low. It's like low 20s, high 20s.
Oh, wow, okay.
Let's say it shouldn't be, well, maybe, cool. But yeah, this whole last week has been like in the hundreds. So it's crazy.
Yeah, we've got this week, I think it's like the next 5 days, it's going to be
Yeah, it's
35 degrees.
It's like 94 Fahrenheit here at the moment, which
Okay.
is super hot for London.
Oh, yeah.
Like, super hot for London.
Now, Steph, this is very much your episode. Do you want to kind of elaborate on why you wanted us to talk about this topic?
Oh, well, first of all, I really like that, first of all, let me just say I am pan and non-binary, so I kind of fit into the group of a lot of areas that don't get represented in media. So that's very high on my list of things I pay attention to a little bit more than some other people, because they don't really encounter that problem as much. So I really like it whenever places like Shadowhunters attempt to be a lot more inclusive and diverse inside of their areas, and I like it even more whenever they actually bring trans and bi and gay people actors into the roles, because they bring another level of authenticity into it. Not that in any way am I saying I don't like Mads and Harry. They're both awesome. But there's another level of authenticity you can get when you have actors that bring their own personal experiences into the role. And also, I want to say writers and directors. Those are
Yeah. Did you watch the Comic-Con panel?
I watched one of them, the one with Harry Shum and Wilson Cruz and Anthony Rapp.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting there, to just kind of have the combination of, a lot of characters, a lot of actors that are in the LGBTQ plus community, combined with actors that are not, and just kind of seeing this panel, and it's sort of like I think everyone did really well, but it suddenly became so clear that there's two people sitting in this panel that don't want to speak up and don't really want to voice an opinion right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Absolutely. It was, yeah, it was very clear when the conversation shifted from I experience this to I'm attempting to embody and represent people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, for kind of for today, for this kind of chat, like the kind of, we are going to come at this very much from the external perspective of this is what we're seeing on television, this is what we're experiencing, this is what we've grown up with, this is what we think should be happening. But yeah, as Ruth said, obviously not our ball game or our ballpark. So very,
Well,
very
allies are needed too. Allies are very, very important as well. So, you know.
So one of the things that I was kind of thinking, that I was kind of, wondering about in regards to, doing this, was literally thinking back on, because there's such a shift in what we're seeing on television at the moment, but thinking back on what I grew up with. And what I was wondering was kind of what was everyone's first awareness of non-cis representation on television? Yep. Hang on, we're buffering.
Non-cis and non-straight.
And we were doing so well.
Oh, we left her. Okay. Well, we'll crack on and see if we can get Steph back.
I'm not sure whether I don't know, is that...
No,
Us
that's
happy.
us ending. If you press that then, but we're here.
No, I meant the top bit, whether we've actually got the internet on our side.
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay.
We're fine. We've lost Steph, but we're fine.
Oh no, we have lost Steph. Is everyone else still with us? We are very, very, very good at this technology.
Well, you know they are. You can see it.
Yeah, no, sorry, I literally just saw. Juniper is telling us that we're still good.
Thank you.
Okay, where we go? We've got, hopefully, we'll get Steph back. Oh, the technology.
Hello.
There we go. I don't know what happened. Woohoo!
I know you're fuzzy.
Yeah. Right now. Support channel. Let's see.
I just want to see whether that's going to sort itself out or not. Sorry, Steph, you are really buffery and very, very fuzzy. And now the internet. We might have to do this in writing.
Yeah, we can't see you and your face has turned into a kind of pixelated blob. No.
It's all going horribly wrong. However, we have multiple votes from the audience about my so-called life.
Which I've never seen a single episode of.
I have never seen a single
I don't
episode
think
of.
it aired here.
Let me try. Oh no, Steph is gone again. Oh no, we were doing so well for the first 7 minutes. A so-called live German title. My Life and I. Yeah, no, never seen it. I have, yeah, Rachel's saying it was such an awesome show. Still one of my favorites, the Christmas episode. Crying emoji. Which I'm assuming was very sad, but I do not know.
Like happy sad or just straight up?
I mean, I'm assuming Christmas sad, as in, like, everything is high emotion and wrought and kind of sad.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if we can get Steph back. But until we might have to have Steph writing in rather than try and join on the live. I am very sorry. We are not very good with the technology. I thought it was going to work.
I don't think it's anything we can do. I think it's
I don't know.
it's Steph's.
I think it might be Steph's internet.
Struggling.
But until then, what's your what is the earliest kind of any type of representation that you very much are aware of remembering from watching television?
I think really early in my television media consumption, like history, there was stuff like Carol and Susan in the early seasons of Friends, and stuff like that, which it's not very impactful, as far as kind of watching a show and having things make lasting impact. Like, I mean, it's a bit weird for me because, I come from an incredibly diverse social group, like not me personally only, but like my parents had a lot of LGBTQ friends, and so I knew lesbians when I was too young to really understand why that was a thing that was not something that everybody
was just okay with.
So, like, I'm aware that I watched Friends very early, and they were in it, so I assume that was quite early. But as far as like stuff that I was thinking about, that will have been Willow and Tara in Buffy.
Yeah, okay, that kind of made an impact on your life.
Like, I was like, okay, well, you're doing something deliberate and important here that not everybody else is doing on television. And I think that was the first time for me it felt anything other than like just incidental to what I was watching and to what I was experiencing. That makes sense?
Yeah. Okay.
I know Will and Grace was also on air at the time, which I have, again, sort of vague awareness that I watched a few episodes of, but it wasn't something that I really kind of stopped to think about. Ginny says, especially as they existed as a joke against Ross to begin with rather than people. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Will and Grace, weirdly enough, because I don't massively remember watching Will and Grace as a kind of, regular, this is something that's on all the time and I have to religiously watch it every day, once a week, whatever it was. But I do really strongly remember the kiss that Will and Jack had, which was basically them queuing outside one of those, morning TV shows that has the crowd outside on the street. And Jack was there to complain about the fact that a gay kiss was cut from a mainstream television show that he was watching, and said, how long are we going to have to wait? When are we going to see two men kiss on mainstream television? And Will grabs him. Sorry, helicopter. I think it adds to the drama of the moment. And Will grabs him and snugs him while the cameras are on them. And that is a really vivid moment in my memories, in a way that actually watching Will and Grace as a TV show really is not.
Yeah.
But I also remember kind of having that really weird, okay, but you're on mainstream TV and therefore you're making a statement because you're doing it on the cameras that are within your TV show that's meta, but you're also doing outside of your cameras. But because you're doing it meta, it kind of almost doesn't count. And you're also doing it because you're making a point, not because you're actually in a relationship, whereas all the people that Will was actually in a relationship with weren't allowed to have anything shown. Like, even at that age, I remember it being just so weird and layered and kind of, it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Fader Sicker says, Will and Tara are such a lovely couple, but a bi-erasure with Willa still bothers me. We have talked about this I assume one of the, actually, I think it's probably our actual Thinky Thoughts episode on Buffy rather than anything else. Because I felt the same way about it, and kind of like, but why is it so hard to just say bisexual? And you made the point that,
I mean, I feel like it's really difficult because bio erasure is a massive, massive problem on television, and obviously it would have been really easy to make that a part of the representation that they were dealing with, and they didn't, and that's a shame. I do, however, feel like Willow's story, as far as her sexuality is concerned, is about a college experience and discovering herself and remaking her identity in a lot of ways.
mm-hmm.
And therefore, I think that there is validity in saying, well, this was, a relationship she had in her past, and this was a relationship with a man that she had in her past, which meant a huge amount to her, but that her self-identity and the way she expresses that identity has shifted, has changed as she's grown older, which is something that happens to all of us at some stage in our lives. Some of us go through that very, very early, some of us go through that much later, but that exploration of self and the way in which we see ourselves and the way in which we express ourselves to the world does change and shift. So I don't have a problem with her personal identity shifting in a more from this thing to this other thing kind of a way, rather than her kind of absorbing this new aspect of her identity into her previous identity. So like with Willow specifically, I don't have a massive issue with it. I think there are valid reasons for doing it the way they did. I think it would have been
feel like they never dismissed Oz and the love story that Willow had with Oz.
Yeah.
And I think that to me would make the difference. They also didn't kind of talk about it and make it very vocal.
Mm-hmm.
And they could have obviously done more. I think, it's safe to say that anyone can always do more, but I do think not dismissing Oz is kind of what makes a difference to me.
Yeah.
We got Steph back. Ricky from My So-Called Life. Apparently, My So-Called Life is, I guess
we're missing out.
Well, it's clearly just like that age when you were that age to watch television, and that's what everyone watched, and we clearly missed it by a few years. One way or the other.
As I say, I don't remember it ever being aired on the telly box in my youth. But
Oh, we are so not good at this technology. As far as Buffy, there is also some problematic anti-gay language played for love, usually with Xander as the brunt of the joke. Yeah.
Massively.
I mean, that is a very separate, huge issue that Buffy has, absolutely.
Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of, like, the kind of late 90s-ness of Buffy, which is about gay panic being played as a joke, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's there, that's just there, and
not good.
Is quite a lot associated with Xander himself, both because it's directed towards him and because he says some of it.
But I think it's also that's kind of what then makes you question everything else they're doing.
Absolutely, because like a big part of all of this stuff is about a show team proving their integrity to the audience.
Yeah.
Like, you have to earn trust from your audience, and you have to earn trust from your audience with everything that you do. Whether that's as far as your storytelling is concerned, whether that's as far as your character development is concerned, whether that's as far as your diversity choices are concerned. Because I think it's more than representation. I think it's about like the way in which you're depicting the vast array of people, characters that that you're portraying on your television screen, because people are diverse, and you have to build up trust with your audience when you're doing all of those things. And I think Buffy, as generally, did not have a huge amount of trust in the bank when it comes to that kind of discussion generally. Yeah, so Gilly saying, I mean, I agree with Faded Sticker that ended up that way it did because of Whedon, but that doesn't mean Willow's story didn't have merit despite that. She does fit into bi erasure trends. Yes, she does.
And yes, Faded Sticker previously saying, I always thought that the reason they did it the way they did was because Joss Whedon is the worst. With all the capitals. Abby's saying, I'm only 18 and have fairly strict parents, so I've only been able to watch things that they don't watch since 13, so I don't remember seeing LGBTQ plus characters before then. I mean, I can't even work out what age I would have been. Yeah, probably 14, 15-ish. What age did you watch Friends? When was Friends on?
So Friends started airing in like 95 or something like that in the UK. Long time ago. I was like 6, 7. I was a tiny insomniac, and I used to sleep downstairs, and my parents' sofa was like our sofa at the time. It was like the living room door was kind of there, and the sofa was kind of there, so you could actually sneak behind the sofa.
That's how you're meant to watch Doctor Who, not Friends.
Yeah, I watched like probably a good 2 seasons of Friends from behind the sofa when I was about 6 or 7 years old.
That's just silly.
Yeah.
That's just silly. Okay, we have many votes for My So-Called Life. Clearly, that should go next on the list. I will write it down.
She's actually writing it down. She's got a pen and everything.
I do. I also, like, I did, I don't just say these things and, lie about them. I'm on season 5 of Schitt's Creek now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been told to watch it, and after 2 seasons of watching it, kind of with some interest, but not massively, while, tidying my bedroom, I now love them. And I hate myself.
Okay.
That's what happened. So I feel that's going to happen with My So-Called Life as well. So Steph, shall we try this thing again? See if the internet's doing a thing? I don't know how this is going to work now. I don't know if it's going to work now. We don't have your join request anymore, Steph. I don't know if you can resend it. We are so good at this. Hi, Boopadoo. Yep, there we go. Let's see. Let's try this again.
It's definitely my internet. It's being wonky.
Oh,
So.
we have noise. We have a face. It is not pixelated.
Very exciting. You look like a human rather than a Minecraft character.
That might be a
Also, we have a vote of confidence. We are not as bad as this as Bradley James.
That's a very low bar.
It is a very low bar, but we cleared it.
Yeah.
cool.
So I think points. Right, so My So-Called Life, apparently.
Yeah.
Is the show to
Yeah, there's only one season, so it's not a big buy-in.
Oh, I can do that before the end of today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's only like 13 or 15 episodes, something like that. So, but yeah, they do the first couple is all the heteronormative couple, but Ricky jumps in, I think episode 3. He's there in the beginning, but not very much of a storyline. But then he gets a really good storyline. Um, and yeah, he was really someone for people to identify with.
It was really interesting hearing him talk about that in that panel, the Comic-Con panel. It was kind of sweet and very depressing that his answer to the first, LGBT representation that he saw on television was himself. That's,
Yeah.
depressing and sort of sweet for him as an individual, I suppose, that he was able to do that.
To make that difference. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm kind of a Wilson Fisk fan, so.
We will be sharing the link to the Comic-Con panel, which all of the Comic-Con panels, they're still online, so we'll share on Tumblr and Twitter for everyone who hasn't seen it.
Yeah, well worth a watch.
Because I did really enjoy it, and I did think it was a really interesting conversation, especially because of the kind of combination of like the diversity within the panel itself, not just the characters that people have played.
Well, it was interesting too because it's like there was a whole bunch of stuff that I've just never watched. There was Harry and Tatiana Maslany from Orphan Black, and I think they were the only people from
stuff that we'd seen,
shows that I'd seen. So it was really interesting hearing them talk about.
And of course,
Jamie Clayton from Sense8. Her too.
Sense8.
No, but also the fairy tale thing.
Oh yeah, but I didn't. I don't know about that. I did see.
What is it called?
Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time.
But like not in any way that gives me an opinion on any of the things. But yeah. No,
well, Wilson Cruz and Anthony Rapp were also in Rent. I don't know if you've seen that.
Okay. Yeah. No, I haven't. But like, yes, that
makes sense. Though actually, I have been reading about this, but I think they weren't in the same Rent. I think they were in different.
They were in a couple of them on Broadway together, but you're right, for the most of their Broadway run, they were separate ones, but they both came back for the movie.
Okay. That's nice.
Which is really interesting because Anthony Rapp plays a straight guy in Rent. Right. I just thought that was funny.
Happens the other way around all the time. Fair enough.
Right.
Yeah, and we did try and watch Star Trek, but turns out it's still Star Trek.
Still Star Trek.
Not your cup of tea.
So we watched some of it, and they're like, okay, because we saw them, because they were on New York Comic Con last year, 2 years ago. When was it? We went
2017.
My God, that's how long ago it was. We went to see the Outlander panel, but got there early, so saw the end of the Star Trek Discovery panel, and we were kind of listening, thinking like, you all sound like awesome people. This show sounds like you've really thought about it, like you're really trying something. Like, we should watch this. We really should watch this. This sounds great. And then we never did. And then you brought it up as well. And I was like, no, let's watch Star Trek. Like, it really sounds like they're all doing like a really good thing. And then we watched like 4 episodes. And I was like, it's still Star Trek though. That's the problem.
I would have suggested, if you started Discovery, to start with season 2. The first season had like 3 different writers and 3 different showrunners, and they kind of like jerked around so much.
That makes some sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the first 2 episodes the first 2 episodes are like completely different from the rest of the series.
Yeah, like even within the 4 episodes we saw, it was like, well, that's 4 different shows. But that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
But if you ever decide to give it another try, start with season 2, skip season 1 altogether, and then maybe you'll go back for the toothbrushing episode, which was a good one from the first one. But I was going to say something. I lost my train of thought. Give me a second to come back up with it.
No problem. Travels and asking if we'll post this afterwards. Yes, we will. We will save it on our Instagram. We'll also try and get it up onto our YouTube channel pretty speedily. No idea whether we'll do anything like more sensible with the audio later, but definitely the video feed will be saved.
Yeah, Instagram does this new thing where now it doesn't stay in your story for 24 hours. It goes onto your Instagram TV. But that should, I'm hoping that it will work just fine. We made it work yesterday when we tried it for like 20 seconds.
But yeah, we've got a YouTube channel where we archive all of our Instagram stuff.
And we hope for the best that it still works. Katie says, I tried to watch the premiere episode of Discovery many times, I could never get into it. And yet, certainly having watched the first, like it's the first 2 episodes, I think, that are just completely removed from anything else that so far I can tell is happening. And clearly from what Steph you're saying, it's just the first season is madness.
Even Michelle,
Absolutely.
get through those very easily, and she's the bomb.
Yeah, she gets a great,
but then she dies.
a great arc in
season
season 2.
She is great, but like she was still being great in Star Trek, and I couldn't.
Yeah. Touche.
Turns up, it kept having all of these things. I was like, yes, where? No, I can't. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yes, he's awesome.
Yeah. And he has not.
You brought up Outlander a little bit ago, and I love Outlander in general. I have a Scottish background in my lineage, but their representation is very problematic as well.
Yes. There's some interesting stuff. Generally, as far as I think Outlander I struggle with because there's so much interesting stuff they're doing with gender politics.
Yes.
Really. And not all of it an absolute hit, but they're talking about stuff, and I kind of appreciate them being as bold as they are with a discussion about gender politics.
Yeah.
There's some problematic stuff. There's some problematic stuff for kind of a whole bunch of reasons that is sort of interesting and sort of brave and then sort of awful, and kind of manages to hit quite a lot of those points all at the same time.
Right.
It's really difficult. It's a really difficult show.
Yes.
Does it continue being problematic? Because I stopped watching 2 seasons ago now.
Yeah. You stopped watching when they were in like peak white savior mode, which was a fun period for all Outlander watchers.
Right.
They kind of got past that.
Okay.
Mostly. And they've done quite a lot more with John Gray.
Right.
Some of which
I
is
wish.
good.
Yeah, I wish they would take John Gray's character and like, do something with the character. Like, I know he's in a political marriage right now, but maybe have some understanding, in the political. Again, there's many different things that they could do.
Yeah, totally. It's also, I think I don't know whether it's out already, but I know that there was going to be. He's got his own side novel.
I didn't know.
About, but I assume it's about him. So there might be some material in there that.
If it's not about him, then that's really not okay.
Yeah, right. So that would be certainly like some material that they could absolutely. Maybe, I don't know when it's set, I don't know anything about it, but he has got his own novel, so there is maybe material that they could mine for that.
Well, also, and you have no idea what their rights are. They might have to renegotiate for a new novel to incorporate it, so.
That's totally true.
Because I think that's always the other problem with kind of, even if a book series expands on a character, it doesn't mean that it will translate into your TV adaptation of it, because it might cost the producers more money to get that next book right as well. So, and also like that's the kind of thing that could be a spin-off TV show.
Yeah.
If it's successful enough, and Outlander certainly is super successful.
Yeah.
So you might also be holding on to it, and therefore you're never going to get more depth on a character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Since we're talking about Outlander,
Oh, she's gone.
I think there's a surprise.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
I mean, it's after 12 o'clock where you are.
yeah.
No problem.
I watched his was it Stephen Colbert, where he brought that on and talked about it. So I'm like, I'm gonna grab that.
Yeah.
We were talking about early diversity, and when I hit college and was able to like pick my television shows from, not having to even worry about, parents watching it. I stumbled upon Queer as Folk, and so that was my really big deep dive into understanding. First of all, I'm in the Midwest, so there's like nowhere for me to go within an hour's drive to even get to a gay bar. So I had to wait to go to college, and even then it was still a 30-minute drive to get to a gay bar.
Yep.
So we're right in the middle of the Bible Belt, and believe me, I've thought many times about migrating to either California or New York, but I've got a lot of other reasons to stay: family, money, all that sort of stuff. So anyway, Queer as Folk was one of my first forays into that side of gay life.
I'm assuming American Queer as Folk, just because people do always.
I watched that. That was my first one. I watched part of the British one. To be honest, at the time, I really didn't understand a lot of the slang and what was going on, so I didn't get into a lot of the characters because I'm just like, I don't understand what's happening here. What do you mean by building shelves? It's like later on I got back into it, but
because I watched American Queer as Folk first, and I don't think I watched the British one until we watched it together here, actually.
Yes. Because I'd sort of missed that there'd been an American version.
Yeah. I have very strong memories of showing you the first episode and you just sitting there going, but it's the same.
It's the same. It's literally frame for frame. Why have they done this? This is so weird. But like, you kept talking about like all 5 seasons of this show. I'm like, no, there were like 12 episodes or something. I don't know what you... But yeah, no, that was interesting, like, because I'd watched not when it came out, because I was 9 or something, and that would have pushed the boundaries of appropriate content, I think. But certainly it had re-aired on telly at some point in my mid to late teens, and I'd rewatched it at that point. And Aidan Gillen, who stars in the British Queer as Folk, had obviously done relatively well for himself since...
He's now evil in...
Well, he's been in loads
What's
of
his face?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Yes. But he's done quite well for himself, so they re-aired it, I assume, in part because he was a bit of a name to be reckoning with. But yeah, no, I didn't watch the US Queer as Folk.
Well, also, British Queer as Folk Justin is in...
It's Charlie Hunnam from...
the motorbike thing.
Yeah, Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy. Which I think is the other reason why it's suddenly, picking back up and being re-aired, because he's huge.
Yeah. Nathan. His name is Nathan. Because he's from
British.
Yeah.
Katie says, Steph, I'm assuming you're seeing the comments too, but just in case. Katie says, I stopped watching Queer as Folk in the middle of season 3. It got boring. Like, right now I couldn't tell you what's middle of season 3 exactly.
I think one of the things about Queer as Folk, as especially the American version, which extended for 5 seasons, is that you've got a sort of initial conceit, which is the same in both the British and the American versions, which is that this is a story about gay club life and these characters who appear in this world. That's your conceit. And then you're telling a story about the lives that these people live. And it's very difficult with that kind of story premise over a long period of time to, one, keep it interesting without, two, going soap opera-y.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the massive problem that I think This Is Us is encountering in its later seasons, is that it started off being this really beautiful, like, this is just a story about people and the sort of minutiae of their lives, and this is just their day-to-day and all of that. And then things get a little bit slow, so you have to introduce, like,
Drama.
more dramatic events to keep things interesting. And I think there are patches, and I think one of the weird things about Queer as Folk is that the American 5-season version is it does have very kind of highs and lows.
Absolutely.
There are like bits of storyline where, like, well, this is just stupid. This is just, no.
Well, and also we've done this before,
Right.
and yeah.
And now we're feeling a little bit repetitive, and there are bits which are really nice, but I think they do struggle in patches with that kind of, like, we need to make it interesting. Let's make a really big dramatic thing happen. And sometimes the really big dramatic thing was.
Have you guys heard the thing called jumping the shark? That's
Yes.
what when they do something really, really, really dramatic just to try and, you know, drum up interest and make the show more exciting, and it ends up being so crazy it's stupid. I thought they did a little bit that way when they got Ted addicted to drugs.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly so. It was exactly the storyline I was thinking of, yeah.
It's also, and you know, this is why the Ted character dies in episode 3 in the British version.
Okay.
That was the biggest shock for me watching the British one. It's just like literally like it's all scene for scene. The bit where he hooks up with the twink and where he gets the drugs, and then he, you know, goes into the foamy at the mouth coma, and then he doesn't wake up, and then literally it's just like they just cut to like the next day and they're like, oh, it's a shame he died, isn't it? Let's go get ice cream. And it's so casual.
Yeah.
And I was like, that didn't happen last time. But yeah, he's not the most thrilling character.
Yeah.
Juniper says, I haven't seen Queer as Folk, but Pose did a great job of showing that kind of storyline without getting boring or cliche.
I love Pose. Pose is amazing.
Pose was one of the ones that we didn't manage to get around to watching at least a bit of before this chat.
How long has that been running now?
I think season 3 they're getting ready to show it at some point after the COVID craziness.
Yeah.
Which could be
Any
God knows
Yeah.
when.
Exactly. This year is, yeah. And we're trying to figure out this stupid political situation that's going on in America. I am like so embarrassed for my country. It's not even crazy.
Yeah.
We're watching.
Watching us burn over here. Australia literally burn, and then America like figuratively burn.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
And
not a good year.
Barely look good in comparison. It's really not doing particularly well at the moment either.
Oh, yeah. I was paying attention to the Harry Potter Rowling and her
drama.
Yeah. So, was there any representation, like explicit in Harry Potter in any of the books or any of the?
No, nothing.
No, this is why the Dumbledore thing is like to me quite so offensive.
Yeah.
Because you didn't put it in the books. You had a billion characters. You didn't put anything in the books. Shut the hell up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
You don't do it now on Twitter and get, brownie points for it, or expect brownie points for it. That's certainly how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, totally.
Have you heard of the term queer catching? There's queer baiting, but have you heard the term queer catching, where it's done after the fact?
Yeah. Okay.
Right, okay.
So
literally just the kind of, I am a good person, buy my stuff.
Right.
Is that yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or yeah. And then
Juniper says they didn't put it in the books and then didn't even put it in the movies later.
Yeah.
Which, yes, is of course the other thing, timing-wise. It absolutely could have been added to the movies, and certainly could have been added to the second lot of movies, which Dumbledore's still in, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
The Fantastic Beasts ones.
Well, there was some queer coding in the Dumbledore's character, but there was nothing beyond that.
No, totally. I think there's a whole bunch of like subtext, you know, and there's certainly like interpretation that you can do about not just Dumbledore, but I think, you know, Sirius is the character that I've always read much more explicit gay coding into. But like, which is fine as long as you're doing other stuff too, which she didn't. So
absolutely, like, absolutely. I was totally a Wolf Star shipper as well. So
yeah.
This will make more sense to you than it will to us. But Mark Allen says opposite of jumping the shark is called growing the beard, because Riker grew a beard on season 2 of TNG and he got better. Got to get some positive Star Trek into this life.
Sorry,
we didn't mean to be negative about Star Trek. We just realised no, it wasn't our thing.
No, Star Trek.
Yeah, it's true.
Love. Enjoy Star Trek. We really hope you do.
No, there's a lot of problematic stuff in Star Trek as well, but yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Not as much as
and I think I remember you mentioning in one of your earlier podcasts that you don't see queer coding, or you don't see a relationship in the Sherlock and John characters.
That one's on you.
It's not. I think there's this tendency within fandom to get upset about queerbaiting, which is sometimes absolutely valid and absolutely textual, you know, that people are being misled deliberately. And I think there is some of that in Sherlock generally, and I think that the show production behaved abysmally in regards to their queer fans and fans who were seeking that kind of representation. They handled the situation appallingly badly, and there were a number of beats in the show where it felt very much like they were mocking people for something that they had no intention of putting it in. But I think that whilst obviously ship as you will, I never saw actual subtext between the characters on screen, if that makes sense. Like, I think that there was real mishandling of the concept of them being in any way homosexually coded at all by the production team. But I don't know, I struggle because of narrative interpretation, basically, is that there's a difference between things that hypothetically could be and that there's space for within the text versus things that you are being led to a conclusion of by the narrative, through the narrative, that then is not delivered on. Those are different things. And I just have to approach the latter with caution. It's like, it's really difficult because they did handle the whole situation. Like, metatextually, they did massive queer baiting, like massively. But I kind of feel like that was retrospective to, I don't know. It's complicated.
I'm totally understanding what you're saying and where your conflict is coming from. I think the biggest problem going on there is that because of the Hays Code, we all know what the Hays Code is, or should I explain what the Hays Code is?
I mean, just do it anyway.
Okay, the Hays Code is basically in television. There was legislation that said that there couldn't be explicit queer representation, as well as a number of other things. You couldn't show prostitution, you couldn't show cheating, a lot of different things explicitly, and you had to handle stuff in that sort of context. The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes was what, help me out, the main guy that did Sherlock and Doctor Who for a while, Moffat. Moffat did said that was one of his biggest inspirations for writing Sherlock. And the guy who wrote The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes said that he was explicitly putting queer coding into that because he wanted that character to be interpreted as gay. So I think what was going on is that Moffat was drawing inspiration from queer coding without realizing he was drawing inspiration from queer coding, and thus caused some queer coding to make it in unintentionally.
Yeah, I think that sounds entirely plausible to me, especially given how irresponsibly Stephen Moffat, generally speaking, handles representation of all kinds. There's this really interesting essay I was reading, the title of which I can't remember and the author of which I can't remember, so this is going to be a really good story.
We'll put it on social media after.
I'll find the link, I'll stick it up. But the Organisation for Transformative Works, who bring us all the delights of AO3, also have a journal, which I thoroughly suggest everybody check out because it has articles on all sorts of really interesting, like fandom-related stuff. But there was this article from somebody who was talking about queerbaiting in fandom generally, and they were talking about this like grid line that they had that was between like subtext and canon on the one axis and fan expectation on the other axis, and that you get into trouble when your fan expectation is really, really high and your canon representation is really low. That you're fine if there's very little fan expectation of actual queer content, because then it's just subtext and we can all just go, oh, we can read into that what we will, but who knows, kind of thing. You're fine if there's actual content that's canonized. The problem comes when your expectation level and your content level don't match up. And I thought that was a really interesting, like, straightforward, possibly oversimplified, but straightforward rubric for kind of like trying to understand how some of this stuff happens and where things affect fandoms in different ways. You know, the kind of like the different versions that we see of this behavior, some of which are more troublesome than others, and the way in which like metatextual stuff also comes into play is also counted into that sort of like subtextual access point, that you have like subtext and you have all of the like metatextual stuff around it. You have stuff that the actors say, stuff that the producers and the writers and the directors say, stuff that maybe is in related content, so like promo material, and also things like prequels or sequels or like versions of this character who exist in other forms or whatever else, which I think obviously for something like Sherlock Holmes is just massive, because you've not just got the version of the character that's on the screen in front of you to think about, worry about, you've also got the way in which he appears in literary canon throughout the years and every interpretation that anybody has ever given to him. So like there's just so much stuff that you're dealing with and so much baggage that people bring to the character before, you know, Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock Holmes has even opened his mouth and said anything. It's just really, an interesting way of like trying to plot some of that stuff.
But yeah, you will